Hey everybody, welcome to the second episode of Rift Talks. We've got a really good one lined up here for you today. We've got some really good stuff in the can and ready to show you guys. So I'm very excited for this episode. Just to give you guys a quick breakdown of what we're going to go through. First off, we're going to do the team fight breakdown. So I'm going to, play-by-play analyze a team fight for you guys, kind of like a la Jat, if that makes sense. Then we have an interview with Veteran, who I'm sure if you guys are LEC fans or even just hardcore League of Legends fans in general, you guys will definitely recognize him. He was the coach for H2K, he coached Origin in the Challenger Series, and now as a content creator, he does a lot of stuff with Thorin. Really good guy. I've known him for a long time and a really, really great league mind, so I'm super excited to pick his brain. We also talked a little bit about the LEC with Veteran, but unfortunately some time constraints will probably keep that relatively short. Then I'm going to dive into the Rick Fox, Echo Fox situation with them being forced to sell their team. And last but not least, we will have a Teamfight Tactics update. I know that took up a lot of our show last time. It's one of my favorite game modes in general right now in any game. I'm playing a lot of that, so super excited to break that down with you guys as well. But first things first, we have a Teamfight breakdown. So this was from day 2 of the LCS last week. So this Sunday, just yesterday, basically the game between Optic and the Golden State Guardians. So here's the team fight. I just want to roll it through once for you guys to see. So essentially, basically what happened here was that Optic engaged, but Golden State Guardians actually took this fight pretty decisively. Now, the thing to keep in mind here is that this fight was relatively even in gold at this point. Okay, there's 300 gold difference, at the 33-minute mark. So very, very even. So let's pause it right away. I want to give you guys a quick breakdown of what's about to happen here. So first off, you see the Poppy coming around from the jungle, coming from behind. So right here, Optic thinks they have a flank, and they don't see Aatrox. Now, what they didn't know is that Aatrox is literally just off your screen at that first turret. Now, they had to assume that he was close. But, the fact that he was literally right in this fight and that he wouldn't really miss any of it, that was the big problem. So number one, Optic needed to engage this a couple of seconds earlier if they were going to pull this off successfully. As we're going to see, Aatrox does an insane amount of damage and really puts in a lot of work in this fight. The second thing that I want to point out here is who they're going after and who they're going to engage on. I want you guys to pay close attention to this, is Froggen. Now, Froggen has no summoners, so they know they can take him out, and that's why you're going to see everything come through here. The other thing to notice is that Rakan doesn't have his ult yet before this fight starts. Now, Sejuani immediately is going to blow her ult to get this engage in, and Ezreal also does not have his ult. So let's roll this clip for a couple of seconds. You're going to see the engage come through onto Froggen, excuse me. And onto the Vel'Koz, that's what I was thinking. And he's immediately going to get taken out. Now, the problem with that is that Froggen was super, super behind. He was actually if you pause here, just take a quick take a quick look here. Maybe back 2 frames where we can see the items. Corki look at the difference between Corki and Vel'Koz. Corki is super fed. He's got 365 CS. He's got 5 items, right? Vel'Koz has 4. So he's down a full item. Essentially wasting all of this on a Vel'Koz that is behind isn't really doing all that much in this game so far. It puts them at a huge disadvantage in the rest of this fight. So you're going to see the Sejuani ult come out. It's just blown. Poppy's going to use her ult here as well on the Vel'Koz. Now, they're going to focus all of their attention on killing Froggen. The problem is there you see the Aatrox coming into the fight. He's coming in through the back, and this is where things get really squirrely because the other person who absorbed a ton of damage was the Braum. Okay? And Braum is, he's just there to absorb damage. If you see, he managed to keep himself alive with the Hourglass, but everybody else on the side of Golden Guardians is full HP right now. That's a huge problem because there's no ultimates left on the side of Optic. So right now, the turnaround is going to be real here. You're going to see the Kai'Sa come through the back. Look, she ults. She manages to get herself a ton of damage down onto the back line. She's in a very safe place. She knows she doesn't have to worry about any CC. Sejuani skills are all on cooldown. Poppy basically used all of her skills as well. So now all Optic can do is run. And the Aatrox is so fast that they don't have any ability to run. You see Arrow here trying to kite on that Ezreal, trying to get out of the way. But it's just a little bit too late. Crown trying to escape on that Corki. Crown was one of their biggest carries in this game. And again, the fact that they went all in on this fight was a huge problem because they were a poke composition. When you have Ezreal and you have Corki, that's a composition that wants to do a lot of poke damage. You're not going to excel in an all-in fight against the likes of Aatrox and Morgana. And not Morgana, excuse me, Kai'Sa. They do way more damage in a short period of time. So again, you see here Haunter on that Aatrox immediately takes out Corki, and he's just going to chase this Ezreal down. There's nothing he can do. He's going to burn the flash. He's going to try and get away, or sorry, burn the E, and try to get away. But it's just not enough. Basically, this Haunter on this Aatrox is too fast. He has too many skills, too much CC that is just going to make it so impossible for him to get away. And at this point, the fight's already lost anyway. They're down 4-0, but that is a clean ace. That turned, or not entirely clean, and because they did lose Froggen, but essentially clean enough that they were easily able to take Baron and win the game off that. So things to note: one, if you're going to do something like that based on a champion being not there, you need to know exactly where he is. The Aatrox showing up right at that time tells me that they were maybe thinking they had a couple more seconds before he showed up, which they did not have. So that was a big problem, and problem number one. Number two, their composition was poke heavy, and the fact that they went all in. Now, again, they did that because they thought they could kill Froggen, then it would be a 5v3, not knowing the Aatrox was there. Still a relatively iffy decision. But Aatrox was the most fed person on the side of the Golden Guardian. So if he wasn't there, you probably win that fight as Optic. But the fact that he is there, and then you're a poke-heavy comp now engaged in an all-out war, that's how you lose a fight and a game. So make sure if you're going to do that you really know your own team's win conditions, and you're aware of the other team's champions. Because if you miss one of those two things or both, then that's how you lose a game. And essentially, even though that game was super close, neck and neck the entire time, that was the end of it. After that, it was just a quick steamroll, and Optic fell without much more fight. So I hope you guys enjoy that. I hope you guys found it informative. Would love to hear any feedback you guys have on what sorts of things you'd like me to focus on in the future. If you have any fights specifically that you want broken down, feel free to send them to me or to the UGC Twitter, and we will make sure that we feature those in the next and coming weeks. But now I'm super excited to introduce you guys, if you don't already know him, to an old friend of mine, Veteran, that I'm about to speak to and give an interview. All right, guys, now I'm going to be joined by Veteran, a coach and analyst from the LEC. So, Veteran, how's it going, dude? It's been a long time.
Oh, it's been a long time, but it's good to see your face again. It's always nice to see old friends.
Yeah, right. I mean, what was it now? Like 4 years ago that we were doing like Into the Rift and that sort of stuff?
Yes.
It was way back then.
Oh yeah, like way back when I basically like just joined Origin. That was like my first team as like an analyst and stuff. Then I ended up going to like back when the Score was able to pay people ludicrous money to do the golden age of esports journalism, as it was,
Yeah, they had everybody for a little while. It was great. They're right here in Toronto, actually. I've seen their office.
Oh.
They still have a great office. It's just, I guess the salaries have. I guess they realized that paying somebody the amount of money they were paying was kind of productive. Anyway, that's all. That's all beside the point, guys. I'd like to let everybody get to know your story a little bit. Like, obviously, I've known you for a long time, but like, how did you get involved originally doing League content, and what was that path for you like to going from just somebody who was interested in a league to somebody who was working in it full time?
Oh yeah, sure. So actually the way that I got introduced to League was because I had a decently successful Call of Duty YouTube channel and a gaming team there, but only for the PC side of Call of Duty, which obviously does not really exist anymore. And it was very much not coming into not existing back in 2013 when Febithan actually introduced me to League of Legends. He was 14, 15 years old at the time, and he was very excited that he got into a game with XPeke, and that the video of that was on YouTube, and he linked me to that. I obviously had no idea what the hell was going on, but then a couple of clicks later, I saw that this game was taking place in stadiums, and I was still in an esport where if we got like 200 a month or like 400 in a tournament, we thought we were like millionaires. It's like, okay, well, I'm abandoning ship. This is all good to go. Spent the first year in like season 4 trying to understand the game more and more, and then Riot decided towards the end of season 4 to announce that they were going to make like coaches an official thing. So suddenly teams were actually looking for staff. I tried my luck with a friend of mine at the time to try to get into Origin that were an up and coming team that hadn't actually advertised for staff yet. So the thinking was that, well, they haven't asked for it, but everyone's going to need it. So why not just like pop something on Reddit that's like an analytical like breakdown of their stuff? And then we were essentially by default the only applicants. So we managed to get in that way. You can't really get into esports this kind of way anymore. Everything is a lot more predetermined, a lot more centralized. There are definite hierarchies. There are people that you need to know for sure. But back then, if you were brave enough, you could kind of make your own contacts. And that was how I got my start, was the Origin thing. That kind of springboarded everything. They weren't exactly like paying, and as you just alluded to, the score was paying a lot at the time, and I had an English degree, so for my second split after the Challenger split, going into like content and going into the score esports and being able to say I actually have a degree in this field, I obviously understand the game, I can come in. Shout out to Kelsey Moser for getting me my start there. And that was how I moved into content straight up. And then obviously I ended up with HGK the next year in 2016, the World Championships and all that. Then in Schalke, getting them out of Challenger Series, broke the record that I had with Origin, which was kind of a record that didn't count because I was just an analyst, and I had SOAS, Xpeke, Miffy, amazing. And like Niels was the only real rookie there. But like, so the one with Schalke kind of counted more when we went like 10-0. Like we only dropped one game of Origin, didn't drop a single game with Schalke. And then after qualifying, I actually went back to H2K for the splits, but we didn't make it into franchising, unfortunately. So that was a bit of BG. But now I'm back into content. I could obviously springboard back at any point. I spent a lot of 2015 building up my brand, and I tried not to like just let the brand sit there, make appearances on talk shows like Narrative Wake and Summoning Insight and stuff like that. So this year I basically decided I would either go into a National League team, because most of the LEC offers I got weren't like head coach, and they were super late in the game because we didn't know we weren't into franchising until really late. But I decided that if Foreign said yes to doing Elitist United this year, that then I would just go back into content. And he did say yes, so I decided to like full-time content this year. And I guess that's the story so far, kind of deal.
Pretty like all over the place kind of story. So you've done a lot of coaching, a lot of analysis work, like that sort of stuff. And you've also done a lot of content, which I think makes you kind of unique in that sense, because a lot of the coaches we don't actually hear that much from. They're very behind the scenes sort of figures, right? Like they're obviously great league minds, but we don't really know how they think. So I think this is a really cool opportunity for people at large to kind of understand, like, how does an LCS coach think? Like, what are their priorities? And maybe what are some of the key differences between when you watch games as a coach and when you watch games from your current standpoint as a content creator in the space?
Oh God! Well, when it comes to like watching games now as a content creator, one big thing is that I obviously have to be able to construct a narrative around all of the things I'm saying. Because whereas with a team, I don't necessarily need a filter in that sense. I can explain to them pretty high level concepts without having to like mince my words, so to speak. And there are also things that they will take as a given that I can't just expect the average viewer to take as a given, which has sometimes caused me to just speak in like 3 paragraphs at a time about something, because it's like, well, if they need to understand this, they need to understand this, and the foundation of that is this, and you can't really get that foundation if you don't know what this is. So I have to break like 5 billion things down to them to say, therefore G2 went from mid to top this game. But with teams, I can normally take stuff like that as a given. Also, my VOD reviewing when it comes to teams is very targeted. Like right now, I have to be an expert in DLEC. Whereas as a coach, I have to be an expert in my own team and the next 2 teams that we are facing. I don't have to be an expert in every single team in the LEC at all points. So I could be much more specialized as a coach than I am expected to be now as a content creator. And there were things that Kelsey was saying to me where she figured that being a content creator is sometimes like harder than being a coach, that I didn't really understand way back when I was just an analyst. I didn't think that like doing content would be as difficult as she was like making it out to be. But honestly, if you really do want to know your stuff as a content creator, it's not enough to just be able to say some sort of broad-based point of like, oh, the Korean teams are obviously very smart. The European teams obviously have a lot of mechanically skilled players. You can't just say that, you know. You can. Some people do try to get away with it, but like people like Kelsey obviously weren't doing that. And I feel like it's a responsibility to tell the story of these players in the LEC and even in the national leagues as accurately as possible, and that just ends up requiring a large amount of time watching VODs that I didn't necessarily have to spend as a coach, because as a coach I just have to be an expert on my own team and then take players through that process. I'm not expected to know what's happening all across the league at once, you know, but as a content creator you are actually expected to. So in a way sometimes it takes like a lot more VOD review to do what I do now than it did to do what I did as a coach. Like as a coach, I'm worried about the current scrims. I'm not worried about like the tendencies of every single team in the LEC. So this is probably not the answer you were expecting, but that's being the reality of it to me.
Yeah, I think that would take a lot of people by surprise, right?
Yeah.
Like I definitely think that you learn from the best with Kelsey. Like having worked with her, I don't think I've ever worked with somebody with a bigger work ethic. Like just the amount of stuff she would watch and the amount of time she would watch certain things and pause and rewind. Do you do a lot of that? Like when you watch a VOD, how long does it take you to watch a 40-minute VOD? Is it 40 minutes? Is it an hour and a half? Is it 2 hours?
I mean, anyone who's like watched me do VOD reviews on my stream and stuff will see that I'm constantly flicking back, and you can see this across any analyst. Like if you watch Papa Smithy's reviews, for example, they're very, very popular right now, and he spends so much time on like a 50-minute long game means that you're going to have like a 2 hour long Papa Smithy review, you know, and it's very much like that. Which makes it a good thing that you can be as specialized as you are when you're a coach. You can't. This is the biggest culture shock, and I think the biggest advantage that I have coming from being a coach to being a content creator is that as a coach, obviously when you're doing scrims, you're going to have the talk immediately after. So a large amount of the time I spent, particularly in 2016 HGK as an analyst, was learning how Prolly, who was the head coach for HGK in 2016, was learning how he recognized when a situation was going poorly as fast as he did. Like, what are the things that should be happening right now? Oh, they aren't. Well, it could only be one of like these things that is like the issue. So check all of those things. Okay, it was this. Otherwise, maybe this would be a portion of the VODs that as a team you'd have to all go through together and figure out like, why didn't this setup work? But I ended up with like a system of what I call a system of recognition, based on my time in 2016 HUK, that really benefited me as a coach and does allow me to cruise through like a lot of VODs as an analyst in content creation faster than I think a lot of other content creators do who do my kind of VOD review. Like as a caster, you're not expected to be like analyzing the game. You're expected to like pick out like the certain like highlight plays and emphasize them and blah blah blah. But to do like this kind of analysis, very often, yeah, you are flicking back and forth. But I kind of have the ability to do like a straight up fast review if I have to. But the purpose of that fast review would be, okay, these are all of the issues with the team right now, and they're very tailored towards that. It's not going to help me construct like a full-on narrative of what happened in the game, but I am at least able to do that faster than most people. But generally speaking, yes, if I want to like break down the game straight up, I still do have to take it to like the 2-hour-long Papa Smithy reviews, and you'll see that all the time on my stream. That's just a fact of life, you know. Like you can't be an expert in like a days of LEC without putting in 16 hours to go through 8 hours of VODs. You know, like it's going to take that kind of thing. And then when you do that and realize that there are some content creators that do this for every region, then you start seeing where all of the numbers start accumulating, you know, like then it becomes really obvious to you what people say about the difference between like content creation and coaching, and how it's not as clear cut as you might think. It's not as clear cut.
Yeah, it's definitely eye-opening, I think, for a lot of people who maybe even want to get into it. Like, it's a lot of work. It's not just talking over a VOD. You got to do some prep, because even when you review a VOD, you might want to review some of their previous VODs quickly yourself, just to see what have they been doing, what are their tendencies, what is this pick and ban strategy aimed at doing, right? You need to be very familiar with the teams, and you need to kind of start from square one. What was the strangest thing for you about coming into a team that's, you know, not like you mentioned, Prolly was the coach before you, right? And obviously Prolly had a decent amount of respect in the League of Legends community. People like him. Seems to be pretty well esteemed. What was it difficult kind of taking over somebody else's team, you know, quote unquote, or did it feel very natural, like they were just like, okay, let's do it this way? Or were they used to doing things a different way first?
Well, actually, the roster that I took over in 2018 had to be built from scratch. There wasn't any aspect of Polly's old roster that was in that particular roster. And obviously in the 2016 HUK roster, I never ended up as like the head coach of it, so there wasn't really a sort of kind of taking the reins. In terms of working with the organization in 2018, I mean, they'd worked with me before. I actually had like a large hand in building both of Poly's 2016 HUK rosters, so I was kind of used to it. What was a huge shock for me though, that was completely different to before, was that HUK were saving money because they wanted to make a big play for franchising to stay in the green. So I now had the budget where, I mean, this will kind of come off as flame. But when you have a budget where you're at the point where Unicorns of Love and Rockout are outbidding you for players, then you know you probably have an issue in the budget sense. So it's not like I will never say that like the players that we had were bad, but it was difficult to build a set of 5 that works optimally together, you know? And as people are seeing from this year with Misfits, that matters a lot more than just having like really good players, you know? Because there is no singular player on Misfits outside of maybe Maxlaw that I would say are like bad players, you know? But as a 5, they didn't work together. And Maxwell was not like so bad that he would drag down 5 like really good players. Like Soaz was really good, Febivan is really good, Hansam is really good, and he got like a lot of flack this year that I think was undeserved. And Gorilla was really good, but Gorilla wasn't good in like the way that they needed. And like Febivan wasn't good in the way that they needed to pick up the slack. And Soaz was good in one way that they needed to pick up the slack, but only on certain champions, you know? And it's like you can't. This wasn't a team that was put together properly as 5, and with that H2K roster, I didn't necessarily have the opportunity to put a team together as 5. We still made like the miracle run to playoffs and stuff, which I sometimes wonder if that's like currently my proudest moment in the career, because it's probably the worst record that I had. This is the worst record that I had in any season, but it may have just contained the best moment, because that like coming back from 1-7 and making it to playoffs, when we actually made it to playoffs, like I just ran up and hugged Sprattle. That was the first playoffs that he ever made, you know? But it was like, holy God, man! Like,
yeah, definitely. It's pretty. It's always cool to have like a story where you come back rather than just be ahead the whole time. Like for me, my favorite stories aren't necessarily success stories. They're stories of people being down and out and defeated and then finding that success, right? To me, that's far more interesting than just a straight up, oh yeah, they were great. Like, you know, your Origin CS story, for example, like it's cool, but when you have a team that's that stacked, it's almost given that you're going to be successful. Whereas when you manage to come back from an area that, you know, you're not, like, people have written you off, they've counted you out, they're not even thinking about you, come back and make everybody realize that they're wrong, that's gigantic, right? It must have felt, I can't imagine how good that felt.
Oh yeah, but like, so you would think that like the thing that I'd be thinking is like, yeah, you guys will prove them wrong, and that obviously when we're working towards making the comeback was our aim. But honestly, what like really struck me and made me really happy is that I didn't fail these 5 guys, you know, because the whole time you do kind of feel guilty when you know that you're opting into a situation where you can't necessarily build the optimal environment for these guys and you can't necessarily put the correct 5 guys together. Like, especially when it comes to like Patrick, now Patrick, then Sheriff. Like I really didn't want to fail that guy. So making the comeback there was, I felt so much relief. I felt so much relief. And I was so happy for them, you know, even though obviously like there were people who were flaming the team as a whole, there were people who were flaming me, and obviously you proved all those guys wrong. The positive stuff was what really like came out at the end there. I'm so happy for Sheriff that he managed to get like a really good team this split in Origin. Well, this split, obviously, they're having problems, but like they are having like a really good season overall, and I think those are the kinds of players that he can definitely learn from. They are a team of 5 like really smart players, and I'm happy for him there as well. I'm happy that Sprattle was able to get on G2 and actually lift the MSI trophy, which I don't think anyone expected is that he would be the guy on that roster to do that. I know Selfie is very happy where he is right now. Casual even is actually doing really well now. Like, even though his team isn't doing so well, people can recognize that he is a very good jungler, and I'm glad for that, because he is a very good jungler, even if he is like unlucky 2 years in a row, kind of on a team that isn't put together the best as 5. And then Smitty is like in the French scene. Smitty, I was less worried about than everyone else, because Smitty's kind of like had his career, you know, but like Sheriff is at the start of his career. So it's like I really didn't want that to be there. And so it was a very emotional moment for me, but not in like a yes, screw all of you guys way. It was just in a very thank God I failed these guys. I'm so happy for them kind of way.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense, especially what you're saying about the younger players, because in esports, if you get written off as a bad player after one split, like that could be your career, right? Like it's a very, and you don't really have that long of a career in esports either, right? If you're lucky, you get maybe 5 years. Like some people like Bjergsen and Double F seem to stick around forever, but for the majority of people, you're in for a couple of years and then you kind of fall off and you're out, right? So to be able to make sure that those players got the right first step, where even though it wasn't the best season, people were still like, well, damn, they made the playoffs. We have to take a look at these guys seriously. That's a huge accomplishment. So I'm sure that, like you're saying, you're very proud and that they're very happy with all the work that you did and all the work that they put in to get there. That's always the ultimate goal. But I want to quickly transition us into the LEC because we don't actually have that much time, unfortunately. So I'm super glad you brought up Misfits because I think they had the most surprising victory last week, taking down Fnatic. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this game in particular. If we get to nothing else, this is the one game that I really wanted to pick your brain on because Fnatic has been pretty strong this year, right? They've been pretty solid overall. And it's kind of strange when you see a team that's been hugging the bottom of the standings, really been struggling to find their footing, and all of a sudden they come up and smack one of these best teams in the league in the nose. So how did this happen?
Let's establish, like, straight off the bat, the team that I talked about beforehand, that was Misfits, the South and this is not the Misfits now. This is Misfits Premier. And this actually contains players that I have been bigging up so much. Like, I've bigged up Leader since last year as, like, the mid everyone should look out for. But he has, like, a little bit of a toxic reputation. Solo queue, and no one was really picking him up. No one was hyping him up at the beginning of spring, except for me on, like, various shows. I kept bringing up Leader every opportunity I had. And then he soared through EU Masters with this team, made it very clear that he is like the mechanical guy to come out of solo queue. Like he is that mid laner. If you're looking for like who could potentially be the next Caps, he is that kind of like flashy, mechanically driven player. And this team is built perfectly for players like that. It is essentially what I'd call a 1-3-1 team. They look to play out their solo lanes very effectively and then transition those into side lanes. Their top laner, Dandan, is a player who will typically play these champions like Jax, like Fiora, like Vladimir, where there is a certain item spike. I'm sure you've probably experienced in your solo queue games, there's like a certain item spike when you're against Jax where suddenly no one can 1v1 him anymore, and Dandan actually plays very intelligently around the map to get to that kind of spot. I wouldn't necessarily call him like a strong mechanical lane in the same way I called Leader, but he plays very intelligently in mid to late game in a way that a lot of current top laners in Europe don't actually do so. There were things he was doing in their loss versus Excel that I criticized G2 for not doing at MSI for Wanda, who is the best top laner in Europe. There are things that this guy can bring to the table. So it's like a really nice fusion of those two. So where it comes down to for me is actually the jungle matchup. I believe that if you're playing this kind of solo lane centric playstyle and you're trying to play like a very wide map for a long time, then if your jungler mispositions in this kind of setup, that's how the enemy team can break through. If your jungler is mispositioned, that's how it breaks through. So I have a very controversial opinion when it comes to Fnatic. I actually think that Brox's pathing is a gating for Fnatic. I don't actually think that Brox has been that good a jungler, and I think that the team itself has figured out a very band-aid system for him. And I think that because I would put the jungle difference in favor of Misfits, that Misfits were going to win this game, and Misfits did win this game. I get to go back to like a different point I made about Casual when they played against Excel the very next day, a team that no one would call, rightfully so, as good as Fnatic. I actually believe then the jungle difference was in favor of Excel, and then you actually saw very often in the mid to late game, Kire would get caught out of position, or Kire would be mispositioned such that now Leader was exposed or Dandan was exposed. Someone on his team was now exposed because Kire wasn't in the right place at the right time mid to late game, and Casual knew exactly what to do with that in the map state and was able to take his team to victory against a team that had just destroyed Fnatic the very previous day. I think a lot of games for this Misfits team are going to come down to how good Kire is on the day, and not just how good he is in terms of his early pathing, but how good he is consistently throughout the game. Because a bad jungler in a 1-3-1 setup mid to late game, or a jungler that makes mistakes mid to late game, calling him a bad jungler is not accurate. Is that will have big ramifications for a team that plays as wide a map as them. But if there isn't, if he isn't exposing leader unnecessarily, or exposing Dan unnecessarily, or exposing the midsection unnecessarily, then what you get is a tour de force of mechanical prowess from leader. Leader shows that he can stand up to any mid laner. Nemesis was even picked over him for Fnatic. Young Black explicitly said that they picked Nemesis because he thought that Nemesis could learn champions in a way that Leader couldn't. And Leader obviously got to prove everyone wrong in that game and got to make some people eat their words. Dan got to have a really, really good showing. He hit those item spikes on his champions, and no one pushes an advantage like that, like Dan does in the mid to late game. So I think if you don't have these issues from Kiri mid to late, these two solo laners are absolutely talented enough at this particular playstyle to carry the game through and win the game. So I think it will come down to that more often than not.
Okay. I think you made some really good points, especially regarding the way that they play in terms of that 1-3-1. If you don't have if you don't have the right support and those guys get caught off, if you don't have the right vision, if you don't have that's a really effective strategy, especially when you have such strong solo laners. But it requires so much intelligence to do correctly. You need to be keeping tabs on all 5 guys on the other side at all times, essentially. You can't get surprised. You can't have somebody come up behind you, because if you do, if you get caught out of position, that's a free objective of some sort, usually a dragon or a baron or something, and that can be game swinging, right? Or even worst case scenario is people show up late to the fight and then they get caught off too, and instead of being a 1 for nothing, it becomes like a 2 or a 3 for nothing, right? And that can get out of hand very, very, very quickly.
I think that for me, it comes down to Dan at the end of the day. I think they only have to maintain this kind of setup that could be destroyed until Dan hits that spike. I feel like if they stayed in the game a bit longer for the Vladimir to hit his 3 items against Excel, then they probably would have just won that game anyway. Because then even if they go for that kind of play on leader, group play on leader and get an objective off of it, well, no one can contest Vladimir on the other side anymore. He's just trading objectives favorably for him. And I feel like they would be at a point in the map where you don't have any sort of window if they can get to that point. But yeah.
Yeah. So this is what I love about League, honestly, more than almost any other game. I keep coming back to League because I just find it so incredibly mesmerizing how many different elements there are to kind of putting together a successful team. And then even if you have a good team on a given game, based on all the positions, based on all your opponent's positions, how do you get all those elements to coalesce and come together perfectly for that one right moment, and then to do that consistently? I mean, that's what makes the good teams great, essentially. But it's always super fascinating to me. I thought that was a great game. I didn't really. I'm super glad we got to have you on here to kind of break that down a little bit for us, because that wasn't something I caught the first time, and I'm willing to bet most of the viewers didn't catch it either. As to maybe why they were able to beat Fnatic yet lose to Excel. That's such a drastic thing that people wouldn't. The quick answer would be, oh, they're just inconsistent. But I think you did a really good job breaking down why they're inconsistent in that sense. And it almost just proves your point from earlier, that to be a really good analyst / content creator, you have to be able to watch everything, know exactly how it's working. And great.
But I would only have to be able to say that thing about Misfits if I was going to play Misfits as a coach, right? But I have to be able to say something like this about every team every week now for shows like this. I have to always be prepared. If you'd asked me about G2, I had 5 paragraphs ready because I think I've figured them out now. I think I figured them out. I had such a mind-blowing moment on stream today where I think I finally figured them out. Yeah.
Yes. Well, unfortunately today we're running really short on time, but I'm going to put this invite out now while I have you on air, that I'd love to have you come back and give us that 5-paragraph rant on the G2 if you don't put it up on your channel beforehand. But definitely one of the most respected voices in the LEC, in the European League of Legends community. So we'd love to have you on whenever you want to talk some League and talk some LEC. Thank you so much for doing this today. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Guys, we're going to hop into hot takes. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Veteran. He's a fantastic League of Legends mind, so it was, great to have him on the show, and I really hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. Now it's time to get into the hot takes. First things first, the big, news that came out of the League of Legends community recently, obviously, is the Echo Fox situation here in North America. Rick Fox, a former NBA player, big celebrity in the esports world, has been forced to sell the spot. So essentially, there's a lot of drama going around this over the past month or so, honestly. All this originally started when Rick Fox said that he was going to leave the team and basically leave the organization that he helped start and that was his namesake. I mean, Echo Fox is called Fox due to Rick Fox. That's a lot of times to say Fox. Anyway, he got involved with this organization and he built this organization because he loves esports. And unfortunately, one of his investors was using some pretty racial slurs and honestly being very aggressive in some of the emails that he was sending him, threatening him, his family. It was some really bad stuff. So Riot obviously got wind of all this after Rick Fox, excuse me. Wow, it's even messing me up now. Had aired all this publicly and basically said, I'm going to leave unless something happens because I don't like this guy anymore. Unfortunately, as far as I'm aware, nobody's seen all the back end legal contracts that are involved with the Echo Fox organization. But on the first attempt, Rick Fox tried to essentially move the ownership of the organization from that racist owner to a member of his family. And they were hoping that that would satisfy Riot's demands that something be done about this, to remove him from the organization or that Echo Fox would lose their spot. In a typical Riot move, I think, in the sense that they're not at all a fan of racism, sexism, homophobia, any of that sort of stuff is a big no-no in Riot's books. And honestly, it's a good thing for the esports community. Somebody's got to take a stand against this sort of stuff. So they weren't okay with that. They weren't okay with his family continuing to profit despite him, and the clear connotations of what the situation meant, right? So they got rid of him, but it didn't quite work out. The family being involved was still too much for Riot. They tried to do something else with it, but unfortunately, they couldn't find an answer. They only had 7 days. Riot gave them a week. So, and maybe a little bit of a strong arm. I mean, I think they should have been at least given until the end of the split. There's enough time in the offseason over the World Championship and stuff like that, especially for somebody like Rick Fox. He's been such a great ambassador for esports. He's done such a good job promoting the industry, promoting the game. He's everything that you want from a team owner. He's passionate. He's very positive. He's obviously got a big name. So this isn't a decision that Riot would make lightly because obviously, having them rep their game, rep League of Legends on the international scene, going on sports TV and all this sort of stuff, that really helped them out. But they still decided that, if you guys can't if you guys can't get rid of this investor for whatever reason, we haven't seen those legal contracts, so we don't know what exactly is tying up that investor from being removed. It could be a whole litany of things, but unfortunately, we don't have those answers at this time. But because they were unable to do that, they were forced to sell the spot. So essentially, what happened was they have sold the spot. It looks like for about $30.25 million is the initial report here. And it's to a group that is involved with the LA Gladiators. So this is still all pending Riot's approval, but I think it's a pretty safe bet. I mean, Blizzard is also another company that takes significant pride in making sure that their ownership groups are, above board in every sense of the way, or in every sense of the word, excuse me. So I think that this ownership group will be fine. They will get the green light, and the sale will be all done. Now, what does that mean for Rick Fox? He does not feel very happy with the situation. He came out and did a podcast, which I encourage you guys to check out and listen to if you haven't already. But he also kind of, that's been summarized, and basically the quote of it is that he feels, I don't want to use the word, but he doesn't feel very good about the situation. Let's say that to keep it PG. But he has said that he wants to continue to be involved in esports. He wants to stay in the scene. He loves the community. He loves the support that he got from the community. So thankfully, I don't think we've pushed him away completely. I would not be surprised to see him come back. I honestly think it would be a mistake for this new ownership group to not loop him in some way, shape, or form to keep repping this team and to give him some ownership of it. Maybe he'll buy back a percentage of it and be involved with this new ownership group now. Hopefully that's what happens. I think that's what a lot of League of Legends fans are hoping for. And it's unfortunate because all of this drama has clearly affected their performance on the Rift. Like Echo Fox has been doing not good, to put it bluntly, this year, or the split at least. So hopefully, with all this drama behind them, they can actually get back to focusing on the gameplay. And hopefully we see more of Rick Fox in the future. That's this hot take. But now, the last section of the show, and one of my personal favorite sections, Teamfight Tactics. It's everyone's new favorite game mode in League of Legends. If you still haven't played it, you're really missing out. You've got to give it a try. But I thought we'd kind of quickly go over what happened in the last patch that just dropped on Wednesday, because that made some significant changes. So assassins were changed, slight buff at the very beginning. But the thing is that they changed completely how critical strike damage works. So IE came out neutral, But honestly, the rest of, if you're relying on crit damage, it honestly took a bit of a nerf. So the assassin comp, even though they tried to buff it at the 3 rank, or sorry, they nerfed it at the 3 rank, excuse me, that really, really hurt assassins. They went from a strong comp that you could kind of rely on to a comp that doesn't really work now. I don't think you see it getting used very often at a high level. If you are going to play the assassins, I highly recommend running them with ninjas, 4 ninjas, because that is the only way to make sure you're getting that damage output. Moving on, sorcerer got buffed, and this 3 sorcerer buff is basically one of the spawns of a brand new comp, as well as the wild buff. So these 2 are massive. Essentially, a comp that you see running a lot right now is 4 wilds, 3 sorcerers, including the Aurelian Soul, and shapeshifters with Shyvana. You get the right items on Shyvana, and you cannot lose. You just can't. Like, you're going to come top 2 guaranteed. It is actually ridiculous. So those 2 buffs, huge impact, and I think that's actually feeding into what we're going to see next week from some of the tentative changes that they've announced. We'll get into that a little bit later, though. The Elementalist took another nerf to the Golem. HP reduced. I mean, last week on the show, you guys saw Leviathan saying that there's no reason to not play Elementalists. I think that's still fairly true, just especially if you get them early. Having that extra body out there with that much HP is super useful, but it's really no longer as strong as it used to be. So if I were you guys, I'd be putting way less of an emphasis on that Elementalist comp because it's just not as successful anymore. And especially with, that wild sorcerer shapeshifter comp being so popular right now, it's really hard to do the magic damage because the Shyvana and the Aurelian Soul don't take any magic damage at all. They take 0. So if your comp is relying on magic damage and while you tank out that golem and trying to use that golem as a way to get your ults and pop everything off, it's just not going to work because you're going to be left with these 2 unkillable monsters who are going to decimate your whole team. I've 8v1'd with Shyvana, so it's pretty strong right now. Into the individual champions. So Ari got a buff again, making this wild sorcerer comp even better. Akali got a slight nerf. This was needed. Akali was doing way too much damage last week, especially with the ninjas. It was just too strong, and the assassins, it was way too strong. So they fixed her a little bit. She's in a better place now, I think. She's still very strong, but nowhere near what she used to be. Evelyn, this is an interesting tweak. They buffed her attack damage, so they made her, more of an assassin in that sense, but they removed some of her health. So I think this is a good overall move because it does put her more into that role. She was a bit too tanky for a quote-unquote assassin. So this is definitely putting her into a nice range. Kennen, they nerfed his attack damage slightly, also highly needed. He was ridiculous for a little while, especially as part of that Elementalist comp. So again, this is also hurting the Elementalist comp, the fact that Kennen does less damage now. Mordekaiser, slight buff. He's still pretty bad, honestly. I mean, if you have a level 3 Mord, great. You can pick up a Karthus and run Phantom or something, or you can run him with inside a Ranger comp if you're using Kindred as well, and you get that Phantom buff. But honestly, he's not a very good champion right now. Poppy, this buff doesn't make much sense to me. She was already incredibly strong, and now she's even stronger, especially at level 3. An extra 200 damage on her ultimate, 100 extra on that level 2 ultimate. Level 1, she's unchanged, but very few people run a level 1 Poppy. So this Yordle comp is still really good. The problem is right now is that there's a couple of big counters to Yordle, mainly Aatrox, who can just one-shot everything. And then the fact that, a lot of the Yordles are AP, so Shyvana and Aurelian Soul. Again, Aurelian Soul, if he gets ults off, he just decimates all of the Yordles. And then Shyvana, even though she's going to miss a bunch of attacks, she won't die. So especially if you put a rapid fire cannon on her, her attacks actually can't be missed. So little pro tip there if you're running against Yordles. Rengar, buff, but he's still bad. Tristana got a nerf. I think this is because of the Gunslinger comp that's going around with the Cursed Blade, the red buff, and the 4 gunslingers. Essentially what this does is it just destroys everyone's ability to, like, if you spent all game getting level 2s and 3s, they're all going to be level 1s. They're all going to be level 0s. Like, it was way too strong, so this was a necessary nerf on her attack speed, especially with that rapid fire cannon. She would hit everybody on the map because it's everybody in range with the gunslingers and 4 of them. So that was needed. I think they're still in a good place now, though. Volibear, he got nerfed, also needed, especially with how strong Glacial is. And, we were seeing a lot of the carry Volibears. Now we're seeing the carry Shyvanas. Cursed Blade, they nerfed that too. So not only did they nerf Tristana, but they also nerfed her Cursed Blade. So a couple of other champions can make use of it, but it's not a great item anymore. Swordbreaker has a 25% chance, and Hush has a 50% chance. So that's something that it doesn't actually state that in the in-game text. So it's nice to know the percentages. Neither of those items are great, though. So I still wouldn't recommend, going for them. If they're all you can make, then they're not terrible, but they're definitely not the best. Infinity Edge was buffed, by itself, but it's not really because of the critical strike changes that we mentioned at the very beginning of this patch. And Locket also nerfed, thank God, 3 Lockets. If you do that, I don't like you. And Morellonomicon was buffed. So that actually helps Kennen a little bit. He loves running that Morellonomicon. And that's, I mean, there's some bug fixes and stuff, but that was essentially the changes from last week. So a lot of stuff got changed. The game, this is what's so cool about this game right now, is it's constantly evolving. You actually have to play almost every day to know what's good, what people are using, what the current meta is, and week to week is going to shift. So this current week coming up, there's actually some changes that have already been kind of announced, some tentative changes at least. And I think overall, these are going to put the game in a pretty healthy place. So let's dive into these. So essentially, they're going to be buffing a few different people. They're going to be buffing Ashe, Karthus, Kindred, and Yasuo. All of this, I think, makes a lot of sense. Yasuo is by far the most underwhelming level 5. Misfortune, not as great anymore since they nerfed her, but she was so strong on the initial ranked release that I think it makes sense. Kindred also, honestly, pretty bad ranger. He's the second worst. I think Ashe and Varus are way better than him. The Ashe buff doesn't make any sense to me. Glacial's already strong. Ashe is already by far the best ranger. The fact that they're making her even better is pretty crazy. Karthus, I'm not sure how they're going to buff him, if they're going to make his ult take less time. I think that would be the best buff for him, because right now his ult just takes so long that it's pretty easy to 100 to 0 him while he's channeling that. They're also going to be buffing the streak system. So I'm assuming that means you're going to get more gold for winning, especially when you look just down below the nerf. The player damage means you're not going to die quite as quick. So they want to still make it impactful to win rounds, and that's going to be giving you more gold. And then Guardian and Pirates are going to get buffed. I think those are both necessary. Guardian is pretty trash right now, and it'll be less trash, hopefully, after this. Especially because, just Braum isn't that good. Leona's okay. So the heroes need work too, or the champions, excuse me, need some work too. But just buffing the buff itself, I think, will be huge. And Pirate, I'm interested to see what they do. Are they going to give you more gold, or are they going to give you some sort of effect that actually takes place on the battlefield? Because right now, the thing that really hampers you with Pirate is that it doesn't give any in-game stat bonuses. So if you have all level 2s early and they're Pirates, that's great. You get extra gold. But a lot of people right now are using Pirate when they're already losing to just get more gold so that they can re-roll into a new comp. Kennen, they're nerfing again because he's still too strong. So that'll be interesting to see. Ionic Spark, I didn't think that was such a good item, but I guess it really does do a lot of damage early. So they're going to be nerfing that as well, which is interesting to me. The player damage, like I just mentioned, you're going to take less damage for losing. And thank God, they're nerfing Demon and Dragon. Right now, everybody's running a Demon comp, or they're running that comp I mentioned a little bit earlier with the Wild Shapeshifter Dragon. And that Dragon buff being completely immune to magic damage is one of the biggest problems with that comp. If you put the armor items on Shyvana and you get some armor items on Aurelion Sol, like they just don't die, and you can't do anything. You literally can't do anything. So that's a huge change. I'm very, very excited to see that. That's going to be a massive meta shift. So depending on what the details are of that patch, like watch out for that, guys, because it's going to be a completely different meta once that drops. Then they're reworking completely Knight, Ninja, Noble, and Void. Knight definitely needed this. It was, in my opinion, by far the weakest of all the synergies. Ninja, it can be pretty good if you get all 4, but it's pretty useless unless you have all 4. Like 1 is okay. You can throw an early Shen out or an early Kennen out, and it does pretty good things for you. But sometimes you want to have 2. You want to have a Shen and a Kennen, and you just can't do that. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do with that rework. Noble, way too strong early game and not very good late game. So I'm hoping they're going to try and balance that curve out more, or maybe they stack it more towards the early game and just say, this is an early game, you build this, and then you kind of transition out of it. Not really sure how they're going to run that. Void only really works with assassins. It's okay with gunslingers, but because it just allows you to ignore 50% of the armor, right? So if people aren't building armor and you're not running a really heavy AD comp, it's pretty useless. And then they're adjusting assassins and Yordles. So I'm hoping what they'll do for assassins is maybe they'll give it a middle tier. Maybe instead of going 3-6, they'll go 2-4-6, which I think will be better. It'll make that comp a little bit more viable, especially in the early game. It'll allow you to get a couple of assassins out there and at least run something. Yordle needs the rework. As much as you can counter it with Aatrox right now, if you don't have an Aatrox or aren't running heavy AP, like Yordle is one of, if not the most frustrating comp to play against. Maybe Glacial's up there, but it's definitely one of them. That's where you'll see people rage, when you're just missing every single attack and they're going to kill you anyway. But That's what we're looking at coming up for next week. So this is another gigantic patch. I mean, Riot is not playing around. They are making giant patch change after giant patch change. And honestly, as somebody who plays a lot of TFT, I couldn't be more excited. It's awesome to have the game be so fresh, so new every single week. But guys, thank you so much for watching. That's going to do it for us this week. We really, really hope you enjoyed this video. Share it if you found it entertaining. And make sure you subscribe to all of the UGC channels and all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys next week for another episode of Rift Talks.